In a recent video, I made these red cliff stalagmite stalactite scatter terrain pieces, and I really wanted to build some matching cliffs to go along with it for a cliffside underground cavern battle that we had coming up. I pulled together all the random scrap foam blocks I had laying around and arranged them in kind of the formation I wanted. Next, I moved my Proxxon onto the floor so I'd have a bit more room to work, and I started cutting down the pieces that were too big for the formations I had in mind. If you don't have a Proxxon, you can of course use a utility knife to do this. It will dull your blade like crazy if you're cutting XPS foam. But if you make lots of small cuts to get all the way through, rather than trying to force one big cut, you'll still end up with a smooth edge, just as if you'd used a Proxxon. One of my first builds was actually a very similar cliff face, but for one, it didn't match my redstone aesthetic, and for two, I found that it was really not very playable. I hadn't added a grid, and I'd left my spaces too narrow for any kind of practical combat. So immediately when I had my shape, I drew on my grids and made sure that there was at least kind of 2 squares in most places so that you could actually interact with everybody without too much difficulty, and had lots of different levels for rangers and things like that. With that done, it was just a case of hot gluing them together, and then it was time to paint. For paint, I kept it really simple. I did a base layer of black Mod Podge to kind of help cement everything together and give us some shadows. Then I did a heavy dry brush of kind of a deep red, and then another lighter dry brush of pumpkin orange, which I find has been working really well for these red stone builds. Here's the final result. I'm really pleased with how it turned out and how it goes with the stalagmite stalactite scatter terrain. The gap between the two pieces made for a really interesting piece of mobility during actual gameplay, having to jump that or push people down it. The different levels worked great too. We had casters on the higher platforms shooting downwards, and the cave actually was big enough to fit a mini, so we had things lurking as well, which is always fun. This is a really easy craft, a great way to start out. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out as a small creator. And until next time, happy crafting!